But this one is primarily a card combat dueling game, but it does offer variants to be played with up to 4 players. And this is a really interesting card battler because I think it does do a few things differently. And the first thing that this one does differently is that it does offer 3 different ways to win. You can either kill your opponent's leader, control all of the 3 neutral city cards that are out on the board, or gain 7 renown. And you're going to be gaining renown by gaining different cards, as well as stealing it from your opponent anytime that you take a city that they control. But there will also be a neutral deck where cards are going to be drawn out from and dealt to each of the 3 cities. That's going to offer mercenaries that players can recruit into their own decks, as well as different items that players can purchase whenever they visit a city, or even events that can change the way that the game plays. And at the start of each round, a neutral card is going to be dealt to each city, and then each player is going to choose 2 cards from their hand to reveal simultaneously. One card has to be a character card, then the other card is a scheme card. And the scheme cards are the really interesting cards here because they're going to have an initiative value that's going to dictate which player goes first, but they'll also have an immediate effect that can change certain aspects of the game, as well as an action that will be available to that player for the rest of that turn. But that's not all, because there'll also be a number printed on these cards, and that will determine how many cards you get to draw into your hand for your next turn. So there's quite a lot to consider with these cards, and you're going to be balancing different aspects depending on what you think most favors you at that moment in the game. Other than that, your character cards that you've chosen are just going to go straight into play, and then players are going to be taking turns performing actions until both players have passed. And there's a few different actions that players can perform, and these are going to vary quite a bit from game to game because you can also use the actions that you have on cards currently in play or currently in your hand. But you can also use an action to move one of your played character cards into a city. You can equip items for different bonus effects, recruit mercenaries from a city that you're visiting, or even try to take control of a city if you think that you have more influence there than the other player. And of course, you can always fight an opponent's player that's at the same location as you. And you're going to let that player know which character you are attacking at that location, but they always have a decision to make here if they have more characters at that location, because they can have one of their characters jump into battle in front of them, and you'll have to fight that character instead of the one that you were targeting. Each character will have a threat value that sends threat tokens to the other player, and then players are going to be taking turns dealing with that threat. And you can either extinguish that threat, getting rid of it completely, or send it back to your opponent player, or even create new threat that you can add into the pool, extending the fight. But any threat that a player can't deal with is going to inflict damage on your character, and the fight's going to go back and forth until one of the characters is defeated. Once both players have passed and completed all the actions they want, that's going to trigger the end of the round. And then the game's going to continue like this, with dealing out city cards to each of the cities, each player choosing 2 cards, a character card and a scheme card. And the game continues like this until one player completes one of those win conditions, and then they win the game. Definitely an interesting game here. It looks like a lot of fun to me, and if you are interested in card battlers, or if this one just sounds interesting to you, definitely recommend checking it out, and you can find links in the description below.